Hello, this is Mr. Ellis again. I would like to continue with our exploration of Java. In this session, I want to talk about primitives, variable declaration, value assignment to variables, and some of the math operators. I have a class open, so I want to open my class here. Now, as you recognize from the previous videos, I have the naming conventions of my project, my package, and my class. Okay. In this class, I would like to add some statements that will create storage for some primitive and assign values to those variables. Now, when you see a double / this is known as a comment. Comments are important, and I'd like to get you in the habit of using comments. Right here, I would like to say, I am going to create some primitives. Okay, hit enter. Now, in class, we talked about primitive variables as variables that weren't objects. Okay, the primitives that we talked about, I actually left out a short and a long, not very commonly used in the integer realm. Usually you'll use an int, which is large enough to hold most values. I talked about the float and the double, the char and the boolean. Those 6 primitives are most commonly used in Java programs. But here I will declare and put some values in for shorts and longs also. Primitive declaration. First, the declaration of a primitive is the keyword. In this case, we're going to start with the smallest integer, which is a byte. Okay, and I want to call it my byte, and a semicolon. Now, that yellow indicator here is saying that this variable, the value of this variable is not used. We will use it later, and that yellow indicator will go away. Okay. Note that I did not, well, you don't know what assignment means, so we'll go forward. A byte is 8 bits. 8 bits is a byte. Okay. The size of this is relatively small. You can go from -127 to +127. And it is usually used for small array indexing. The next one is a short. A short is 2 bytes, which is 16 bits. And I'll call it my short. And again, I haven't assigned a value, and I haven't used that variable, so I'm getting a notice that says the value of this variable has not been used. Okay, and so I hit enter. The next one is an int. The int is 32 bits. And I'll call it my integer. I'll hit enter. And then finally, the 64-bit question or value can go into long. And I'll call it my long. Okay. Notice these are primitives, so all of these declarations start with a lowercase letter. Now they do have helper packages or helper classes that start with capital, but these are primitives. Okay, let's talk about the decimal digits or numbers that have decimals behind them, like 5.732. There are two. We talked about them in class. One is a float, and I'll call it my float. The other is a double. I'll call it my double. Okay. Here again, the double is a 64 byte, so we will use the double most of the time. Float is another type of decimal digits, can hold other types of decimal digits. Now, the idea here is to be efficient with your storage allocation. If I can use 8 bytes for an int and it falls within that range, then I can use a byte. And I know if it's not going to go outside of that range, then there's no reason for me to use 64 bits of storage. Okay. But the default or the practice is that if you use an integer value, most of the time they'll use an int data type. And if you're using a floating point value, most of the time they'll use a double data type. Now, let's address these warnings that we have, these yellow lines. Okay, the reason they're there is because the value is not used. Okay, I can't use a variable's value if there is no value in it. So we want to assign a value to our primitives. Okay, but first let's continue with our declaration. First I want to declare a char value and call it my char, and I want to do a Boolean value and call it my bool. Bool. Okay. A char is a single character. It has 1 bit and it can only hold 1 character from the character set that we have in Java. Boolean is a true, has a value of true or false, and those are the only 2 values that a Boolean variable can hold. Okay. Now, let's speak to the assignment of value. There's 2 ways. One way is to use an equal sign and then place your value in the declaration of the variable. And I'm going to say 45. I'm going to call my byte has a value of 45. My short will have a value of 29,876. These are all integers. My int will have a value of 9,372,890. And my long can go into the billions, but I want to make it reasonable. I'll say I have 198,756,040, sorry, 432. Enter, and make me a large 12,765.1234 digits. Char, like I said, it can only be 1 character, and when you indicate a character, you enclose it in quotes, and I'm going to put a T. And then Boolean can be either true or false. Type mismatch, convert string to char. Here again, there is a specialized, should be one single quote on either side, and now it is a char. Of course, Boolean variables have the values of true or false, and you can write that out all lowercase, true or false. Going forward, in order to get rid of these error indicators or warning indicators, we have to use these values. I'm going to use them in print statements. The way we output to our console, which is the screen, we'll use a statement called system.out.print or print line. And the fantastic thing about Eclipse is that it will actually show you the statements and how you're supposed to use them. Okay, the constructors, what values go in. So in this print line, or print ln, I want to put an argument which is a string. Okay. And here I'm going to put these. Got to be a string, so it's got to be double quote. These are integer values. Now, close quote. I'll open this up so you can see that I'm going to type in here. In order to concatenate a string, you have to put a plus sign, not inside the quote, but outside the quote, Mr. Ellis. Okay, and I'm going to start by writing out my byte. My byte. Okay. Plus. Now I want to put a space in there. Plus short. My short, rather. Plus space. Plus the integer. I'm gonna avoid the long, so I'm gonna call it my integer. Okay. Those are the integer values. Now, I want to output each one of these so I eliminate the majority. As you can see, I've already eliminated some of those warnings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste in here. When I come back, I'll have used all the variables. Now, I've used all but one, the long. I didn't use the long value. I've used all the values, and you've seen that the warning indicators have dropped off. Okay. And now, how do I run this? I will have two methods for running this. The first is to click in the toolbar, the toggle beside the run, okay, and run as a Java application. And it will run it, I didn't save, it will run it and place it in the console. Let's clean that up there. It will run it and place the values in the console. The other method to run it, and I'll just close this so you can see that it is actually running, is to just click the run button and it places the values, because I use system.out, into the consoles. This video has been the creation and assignment of primitive values to variables. Thank you.